By the time my 9-year-old daughter asked me whether her father had known I cried over grocery bills, I had already seen him step out of a luxury SUV in front of a mansion he claimed did not exist. I had already watched another woman put her hand on his arm like she had every right to, and I had already heard my husband laugh about the 11 years I had spent trying to keep our family afloat. What I did not know yet was that the mansion was only the first lie. The worst part would come later. It started with $5,000. Mom, look. Sophie came running toward me inside the South Hills Mall with both hands wrapped around a white envelope, her ponytail bouncing behind her. I was carrying 2 bags from a discount store and mentally calculating whether I had enough left in checking to buy gas before payday. What happened? I won. She was so breathless I thought she meant a stuffed animal. Won what? The summer travel drawing. She shoved the paper toward me. I stared at it once, then again. $5,000. I actually laughed. No way. It's real, Sophie said. The lady checked my ticket 3 times. A woman behind the promotional table waved at us. Congratulations. Sophie threw her arms around me. For one wonderful second, I forgot the electric bill on my kitchen counter. I forgot that my car needed brakes. I forgot that the school camp deposit was due in 3 weeks. $5,000 wasn't life-changing money, but to us it felt enormous. I crouched in front of Sophie. So I said, smiling, "What's the first thing on your list? A new phone? Disney? Enough candy to ruin your teeth permanently?" She shook her head immediately. No, we should go see Dad. My smile faded just a little. Your dad? In Charlotte. She looked at the check again, suddenly serious. We can use some for the trip. And whatever's left we can give to Dad.
Ist daher.
Sophie lowered her voice. He works all the time, Mom. And you said his company still hasn't paid that bonus. My chest tightened. That was exactly what I had told her. Because that was exactly what Daniel had told me. For 11 years, money had been the third person in our marriage. Daniel and I lived in a small Pennsylvania town outside Pittsburgh. Technically, I lived there with Sophie. Daniel spent most of the year in Charlotte, North Carolina, managing construction projects for a company that always seemed to be one delayed contract away from disaster. At least that was what he said. He came home every few weeks, sometimes once a month, exhausted and apologetic. There's just no stability in this business, he would tell me. Or I'm still cleaning up debt from that bad project. Or my personal favorite, give me another year, Ratch. I'll get us out of this hole. So I helped. That was what wives did, I thought. I had left a decent administrative job when Sophie was little because daycare cost almost as much as I brought home, and Daniel kept insisting his work situation was too unpredictable. Now I worked part-time in Sophie's school cafeteria and picked up bookkeeping work when I could. Our apartment was small but clean. Our car was 13 years old. Sophie knew which cereal brands went on sale every month. I hated that she knew that. I hated it more when she pretended she didn't care. Last winter she had needed braces. The orthodontist gave me the estimate, and I sat in the parking lot afterward with both hands on the steering wheel, trying not to cry. When I told Daniel, there had been a long silence. Can it wait a year? He asked. She already gets headaches. I know. He sounded miserable. I just don't have $3,000 sitting around, Rachel. I didn't say you did. I feel like you think I'm failing you. That was what he always did. Somehow, within 5 minutes, I ended up comforting him. We'll figure it out, I said. We always figured it out, which usually meant I figured it out. Sophie waited another year. 2 months later, Daniel came home carrying grocery store flowers and kissed my forehead. If I'm always this broke, he said with a crooked smile, are you still gonna keep me? I rolled my eyes. You ask me that all the time. Humor me. I put my arms around his waist. I married you, Daniel, not your paycheck. He looked almost pleased. Back then I thought he was relieved. Later, I would understand that expression differently. It was the look of a man hearing the answer he wanted. Again. Now Sophie stood in the mall holding $5,000 and worrying about her father. We don't have to give him all of it, she said quickly. Maybe just like 1,000? I swallowed. You wanted summer camp. I can still go. You wanted a tablet. She shrugged. Dad needs it more. That was the moment I decided we were going to Charlotte. Not because Daniel needed the money. Because my daughter loved her father enough to give up something she wanted for him. I wanted him to see that. We won't tell him, Sophie said. I raised an eyebrow. She grinned. Surprise. I should have called him. That thought would haunt me for a long time. If I had called, Daniel would have invented a meeting. He would have changed the address. He would have moved Vanessa's car. He would have had time to put his costume back on. Instead, 2 days later, Sophie and I left Pennsylvania before sunrise. We packed sandwiches instead of stopping for restaurant food. I booked the cheapest clean hotel I could find for one night. Sophie brought Daniel a coffee mug she had painted herself. Best Dad, it said in uneven blue letters. She held it in her lap for half the drive. Do you think he'll cry? Your father. Yes. No. She giggled. He cried at that dog movie. He said dust got in his eye. Inside a movie theater? Very aggressive dust. She laughed so hard she snorted. I laughed too. That was the last easy laugh I remember from that trip. About an hour outside Charlotte, Sophie asked, do you think Dad has air conditioning at his apartment? Probably. He said company housing is cheap. Cheap doesn't mean no AC. She frowned. What if he's eating ramen every night? I'm sure he's not. He works too much. I know. Maybe we should leave him more of the prize money. I glanced at her. Sophie, you don't have to take care of your father. But you do. That landed harder than she intended. I kept my eyes on the road. Parents take care of each other. She nodded like that made sense. At the time I still believed it too. Daniel had given me his Charlotte address years earlier. He called it company housing. I had never visited. There had always been a reason. His schedule. School. Gas prices. A deadline. The fact that he said the apartment was shared with 2 other managers and basically smelled like old pizza and work boots. I had pictured something depressing. A cramped unit. A couch from a rental store. Maybe a kitchenette with a broken cabinet. So when the navigation took us off the highway and through increasingly expensive neighborhoods, I assumed I had typed something wrong. This can't be right, I said. Sophie leaned forward. What? Nothing. I checked the address again at a stoplight. Same number. Same street. Maybe his company moved him. To where? I didn't answer. The houses grew larger. Not ridiculous celebrity mansions. Just the kind of homes I had only ever seen from the outside. Wide driveways. Perfect landscaping. 3-car garages. Sophie whistled. Dad's coworkers are rich. I laughed weakly. Apparently. Then the navigation voice said, you have arrived. I slowed down. No. Sophie looked at me. What? No, this isn't right. The address on my phone matched the number on the stone mailbox. I stared at the house. Large brick home. 3-car garage. Pool visible beyond the side fence. The lawn looked professionally maintained. There were 2 vehicles already parked near the garage. One of them cost more than everything in my apartment combined. Sophie frowned. Does Dad work here? I don't know. You said this was his address. It is. Maybe he takes care of the house. I almost smiled at that. Then I reached for my phone. I'm calling him. Before I could press his name, Sophie suddenly sat up straight. Wait. A black SUV turned onto the street. She pointed. That looks like Dad. My hand froze. The SUV slowed. Turned into the driveway. Stopped. Sophie smiled. It is Dad. She unbuckled her seatbelt. Wait. I don't know why I said it. Maybe instinct. Maybe because the car alone made no sense. Maybe because Daniel had told me 3 nights earlier that he was delaying replacing the crack screen on his phone because he couldn't justify the expense. The driver's door opened. Daniel got out. For one strange second, I almost didn't recognize my husband, not because he looked different, because he looked comfortable. He was wearing a fitted navy polo, expensive-looking sunglasses, clean leather shoes, and a watch I had never seen before. When he came home to us, Daniel wore old jeans, discount store button-downs, a battered work jacket. He always complained about how fast his clothes wore out on job sites. This man looked like he had never stood on a construction site in his life. Sophie whispered, why is Dad dressed like that? I don't know. Then the passenger door opened. A woman stepped out. She was around 40, blonde, elegant. Her dress looked simple until you noticed the shoes, handbag, and jewelry. I noticed because I had spent 11 years training myself to recognize things I couldn't afford. She said something to Daniel. He laughed. Then she walked around the front of the SUV and slipped her arm through his. My daughter grabbed my sleeve. Who's that? I couldn't answer. Daniel didn't pull away. He leaned closer to hear her. Then he opened the back of the SUV and took out several shopping bags. The woman handed him one more. He rolled his eyes dramatically. She laughed. It was easy. Familiar. Not the stiff body language of coworkers. Not the polite distance of friends. They moved like people who had done this 100 times. Sophie reached for the door handle. I'm gonna surprise him. I grabbed her wrist so quickly she gasped. Mom, don't. What? Just wait. She stared at me. Why? I didn't know how to explain the fear crawling up my spine. I didn't know anything yet. Maybe she was a coworker. Maybe the house belonged to his boss. Maybe the SUV was company property. Maybe there was an explanation. There had to be. Daniel kissed me goodbye every time he left Pennsylvania. He called Sophie twice a week. He sent me pictures of bad airport coffee. He complained about bills. He worried about retirement. He once drove back home overnight because I had the flu and Sophie was scared. That man could not be standing in front of a mansion with another woman. Except he was. The woman said something. They were close enough that, with my window cracked, I could hear pieces of it. Club dinner Friday?
Daniel sighed.
I'll make it. You said that last time. I had to go back. To Pennsylvania. My stomach tightened. The woman smiled. Your other life. Daniel gave her a warning look, but he was smiling too. Sophie turned to me. Other life. I squeezed her hand. Shoo. The woman Vanessa, though I didn't know her name yet, leaned against the SUV. How much longer are you going to keep doing this? Daniel looked toward the house. Doing what? She laughed. Seriously? He shook his head. Vanessa. There. That face. What face? The one you make every time I ask how long you're planning to keep going back to Pennsylvania and pretending you're some broke project manager. I stopped breathing. My first thought was that I had misunderstood her. My second was that Sophie had heard it too. She whispered, what did she say? I couldn't look at her. Daniel lowered his voice. Vanessa did not. You've been playing poor husband for how many years now? My fingers went numb. Daniel glanced toward the street. I ducked automatically. Sophie followed me, confused. What are we doing? Stay down. But, please. Something in my voice made her obey. Daniel spoke again. Rachel's different. My heart slammed once. Vanessa said, different from who? Everyone. That's not an answer. He sighed. She didn't know who my family was when we met. Vanessa crossed her arms. And I needed to know. Know what? That she loved me. Me. Not the Whitmore money. Whitmore. The name meant nothing to me for exactly 2 seconds. Then everything else meant even less. Vanessa laughed. Daniel, it's been 11 years. I know. You have a child together. I know that. And you're still testing her? He sounded almost offended. It's not like that. It is exactly like that. Sophie was staring at me now. My face must have scared her. Mom, I raised one finger. Not yet. Not because I cared what happened between Daniel and Vanessa. Because suddenly I needed every word. Daniel set the bags down. You don't understand what my family is like. Vanessa shook her head. No, I understand perfectly. You're terrified someone wants your money. You weren't there when I was growing up. I'm not talking about your childhood. I'm talking about your wife. A pause. Then Daniel said the sentence that would replay in my head for months. Rachel keeps proving me right. Vanessa's expression changed. How? She stays. I felt something inside me crack. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet break. 11 years of stretching grocery money. 11 years of apologizing when I needed help. 11 years of believing Daniel felt ashamed that he couldn't provide more. All of it reduced to 2 words. She stays. Vanessa stared at him. And Sophie? Daniel's jaw tightened. What about her? She's living that life too. She has everything she needs. I almost opened the car door. Sophie needed braces. Sophie had cried last year when I told her summer camp might be too expensive. Sophie wore sneakers until the soles were smooth because she knew I was waiting for a sale. Everything she needs. Vanessa said, does she? Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. She's fine. She's your daughter. She'll understand when she's older. My hand flew to my mouth. Beside me, Sophie whispered, understand what? I turned toward her. Her eyes were already filling. That was what stopped me from going after him. Not fear. Not shock. My daughter. If I got out of that car, Daniel would lie. He would explain. He would confuse her. He would tell me I misunderstood. And I was suddenly done letting him explain reality to me. Put your seatbelt back on, I said. Sophie blinked. Mom, please. She obeyed slowly. I started the engine. As I pulled away, I looked once in the mirror. Daniel was carrying shopping bags into the mansion. Vanessa walked beside him. Neither of them looked in our direction. Neither knew we had been there. We drove for almost 10 minutes before Sophie spoke. Is Dad rich? My throat tightened. I don't know yet. But that lady said. I heard her. Who's Whitmore? I don't know. Is that Dad? I don't know. My voice broke on the last word. Sophie looked down at the painted mug in her lap. Best Dad. She turned it around so the words faced away. That nearly destroyed me. At the hotel, I told her we were tired and needed rest. She didn't argue. She sat on one bed while I pretended to look through the hotel information folder. Finally she said, Mom? Yeah. Was that lady his girlfriend? I closed the folder. I don't know. You keep saying that. Because I don't want to lie to you. Her chin trembled. But Dad lied.
He sat beside her.
Sophie. He did. She wiped her cheek angrily. He said he doesn't have money. I know. He said you had to wait to fix the car. I know. He said my braces were expensive. I looked down. She suddenly whispered, when you cried about the bills. I froze. Her voice got smaller. Did Dad know? I couldn't answer. She turned to me. Mom, did he know he had money when you cried? That was the moment the last piece of my marriage died. Not at the mansion. Not when Vanessa touched him. Not when I heard the word test. It died because my 9-year-old daughter understood something I had spent 11 years refusing to see. If Daniel had money all along, then he had watched us struggle. Not failed to save us. Watched. My phone buzzed. Daniel. For one insane second I thought he knew. I opened the message. Long day. Project's a mess again. Miss you girls. Another message came through. Wish I could give you both more. I stared at it until the words blurred. Sophie leaned against my arm. Aren't you gonna answer? Normally I would have. I would have typed. It's okay. We love you. Or, don't worry. We'll manage. I had spent 11 years telling Daniel we would manage. This time I put the phone down. No. Sophie looked at me. No. No. After she fell asleep I opened my laptop. My hands were shaking. I typed one name into the search bar. Daniel Whitmore, Charlotte, North Carolina. The first result was a business article. The second was a foundation page. The third was a photograph. Clicked it. And there was my husband. Not in work boots. Not in a cheap hotel. Not eating takeout between construction meetings. Daniel stood in a tuxedo beside a silver-haired woman beneath a banner that read, Whitmore Family Foundation Annual Benefit. The caption identified him clearly. Daniel Whitmore. Board member. Family representative. I read it twice. Then a third time. My husband had not been struggling in Charlotte. He had been living there. And for the first time that night I stopped asking myself why Daniel had lied. I started wondering how much of my marriage had ever been true. By sunrise, I had learned that my husband owned a house worth more than I would probably earn in 20 years. By 7:30 I found photos of him at charity galas, golf tournaments, private club dinners, and company events. By 8, I discovered that while I had been clipping grocery coupons in Pennsylvania, Daniel had been sitting on the board of a family foundation in Charlotte. And by 9 I realized the mansion was not the worst part. The worst part was how carefully he had built the lie. Sophie was still asleep when I pulled the hotel chair closer to the desk and opened another browser tab. I searched everything. Daniel Whitmore. Whitmore Holdings. Whitmore Family Foundation. Whitmore Charlotte. The same face kept appearing. My husband. Sometimes in a suit. Sometimes shaking hands with donors. Sometimes standing beside men whose names I recognized from business articles. In one photo he was holding a golf trophy. The date under it made my stomach twist. May 17th, 7 years earlier. I remembered that week. Sophie had been too. She had an ear infection that wouldn't clear up. And our insurance had left us with a bill I hadn't expected. I had spent 3 nights sorting invoices for a local plumbing company after Sophie went to sleep. Daniel had called from Charlotte and apologized because he couldn't send anything extra that month. I hate this, he had said. I feel useless. I remembered sitting on our couch, whispering so Sophie wouldn't wake. You're not useless. We're okay. He had sighed. One day I'm gonna make this up to you. Now I stared at the photo. He had been smiling at a country club, holding a trophy in one hand and a drink in the other. The article called him Daniel Whitmore, grandson of Whitmore Holdings founder Charles Whitmore. I covered my mouth. Not because I was going to cry, because I thought I might be sick. A small voice behind me said, Mom? I closed the laptop halfway. Sophie sat up, rubbing her eyes. You're awake already? Yeah. Did Dad text? I hesitated. Yes. What did he say? That work was hard. Her face changed. Not dramatically. That almost made it worse. She just looked disappointed. Was he lying? Think so. She pulled the blanket around herself. So he wasn't working? I don't know exactly what he was doing, but he doesn't live in a little apartment. No. And he has that car. Yes. And the house? I'm trying to figure that out. She was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, Are we still surprising him? My throat tightened. No, honey. She nodded. Okay. That one word sounded too old coming from a 9-year-old. I closed the laptop. Get dressed. We're getting breakfast. Can we go home? Soon. I don't want to see Dad. I know. At breakfast, Sophie barely touched her pancakes. Normally she would have asked if she could order chocolate milk. That morning she drank water. I caught myself staring at her shoes. They were gray sneakers with the fabric starting to split near one toe. I had promised to replace them before school started. I had been waiting for the back-to-school sales. Daniel had paid for a luxury SUV. The thought made my hands shake. Sophie noticed. Mom?
I'm okay.
You're doing the thing. What thing? She pointed at my hand. You squeeze your fork when you're mad. I looked down. My fingers were wrapped so tightly around it my knuckles had gone white. I set it down. I'm not mad at you. I know. She looked at her plate. Are you mad at Dad? Yes. There was no point lying. Her eyes lifted. Really mad? Yes. Are you gonna yell at him? I don't know. That was the first lie I told her that morning. Because I did know. I wasn't going to yell. Not yet. I needed to know exactly what Daniel had done before I gave him the chance to explain it away. Back in the room, I called a woman named Rebecca Lawson. I knew her through an old coworker from my administrative job. Rebecca handled family law in Pittsburgh. I had never imagined I would need her number. When she answered, her voice was brisk. Lawson. Hi, this is Rachel Miller. Nicole Harris gave me your number a while back. There was a pause. Nicole from Keystone Property? Yes. What can I do for you, Rachel? I looked toward the bathroom. Sophie was brushing her teeth. I think my husband has been lying to me about our finances for 11 years. Rebecca was quiet for exactly 1 second. Then her tone changed. Tell me what you know. So I did. Not everything. Not yet. I told her about Daniel working in Charlotte. The apartment story. The mansion. Vanessa. The Whitmore name. The foundation page. The fact that Daniel had always told me he was barely making enough to keep up with debt. Rebecca did not gasp. She did not say, oh my God. She asked questions. Do you file taxes jointly? Usually. You have copies? Some. I'd have to look. Joint bank account? Yes. Any separate accounts in your name? Just a small savings account. Do you know if he has separate accounts? No. Retirement? He told me he had a small 401k. Property in Pennsylvania? No. Any prenup? No. That answer made her stop typing. No prenup at all? No. Okay. I swallowed. Does that matter? Could. But I'm not going to tell you that you're entitled to half of everything he's ever touched. Trusts, inherited assets, premarital property, that gets complicated. I'm not calling because I want his mansion. Good. Her answer surprised me. Why is that good? Because right now, emotion will make you vulnerable. I need you focused. I stared at the carpet. I don't know what I want. Rebecca's voice softened slightly. Then don't decide today. I closed my eyes. What should I do? First, don't confront him. I looked up. What? Not until you understand what's there. He's been lying to me for 11 years. I heard you. And I'm supposed to act normal? If you can. My jaw tightened. Why? Because once he knows you're looking, records can become harder to access, stories can change, and people start protecting themselves. I thought of Daniel's face in front of the mansion. Relaxed. Confident. Completely unaware I had seen him. Rebecca continued. Rachel, do you want revenge or do you want options? The question hit me hard. I looked toward Sophie's abandoned mug. Best Dad. I want the truth. Then gather it. That sentence changed something in me. For 11 years I had reacted to whatever Daniel told me. The project was delayed. The bonus disappeared. The debt was worse than expected. The rent went up. Insurance was too expensive. Every problem came from him and I adjusted. For the first time, I was going to look at the numbers myself. I had not forgotten how. Before Sophie was born, I worked as an administrative coordinator for a regional medical supply company. I handled invoices, payroll reports, vendor records, expense reconciliation, and monthly budget tracking. I used to be good at it. Very good. Then I became Daniel's wife first, Sophie's mother second, and somewhere along the way I stopped thinking of myself as someone who knew how to read a financial trail. I opened my email, then our bank portal, then the folder where I kept tax documents. Rebecca stayed on the phone. What are you seeing? I'm not sure yet. Start simple. What does he transfer home every month? I pulled up the deposits, usually the same range. How same? I scrolled, then stopped. Oh, what? He sends almost exactly the same amount every month, even when his income supposedly changes. Yes, I kept scrolling. 1 year, 2, 3. The amounts shifted occasionally but only slightly, enough to account for rent increases, insurance, groceries, nothing more. Rebecca said, "What did he tell you about bonuses? That they were unpredictable. Did any show up in the joint account?" No. Tax refunds? I handled those. Large deposits? No. Any months where he said work was especially good? Yes. And the amount sent home? I checked. The same. My skin went cold. Not poor. Budgeted. That was the word that came into my head. Our life had been budgeted. Not by circumstances. By Daniel. Rachel. I'm here. You okay? No. Keep going. So I did. I pulled old credit card statements, insurance records, medical bills, school payment confirmations, the orthodontist estimate. I found the exact month Sophie had needed braces. I remembered the call. Daniel's exhausted voice. Can it wait? I opened another tab and searched the Whitmore Foundation event archive. Same month. There was Daniel. At a donor dinner. Tuxedo. Wine glass. The event had raised over $1 million. I laughed once. A terrible sound. Rebecca said, "What did you find?" He was at a fundraiser. Same time? Same week. I clicked another photo. Vanessa was beside him. Not touching. Not obviously romantic. But there. The caption named her. Vanessa Cole. I searched her. Rebecca said, "Be careful with social media. Can tell you things, but it can also send you spiraling." I think I'm already there. Vanessa's profile was private, but her public charity work page wasn't. There were photos, country club brunches, fundraisers, holiday drives, community boards. Daniel appeared in more than one. Then I found a birthday post from a local event photographer. A girl stood beside a huge cake, maybe 11. Vanessa's daughter, Chloe. Daniel was in the background, holding a gift bag. The caption thanked sponsors and friends for making Chloe's birthday unforgettable. I zoomed in on the bag. Luxury jewelry store. I knew the name because Sophie had once stopped outside that store at the mall and asked why the bracelets cost more than our car. I sat completely still. Rebecca said, "Rachel?" I couldn't speak. "Rachel, my daughter asked for a bike that year." What? Sophie wanted a bike. I remembered standing with Daniel in a Walmart aisle. The bike was $189. Daniel frowned at the price tag. "Can we find a used one?" I had defended him to Sophie. "Dad's trying. Money's tight. We have to be smart." I whispered, "We bought one from Facebook Marketplace." Rebecca said nothing. I stared at Daniel's hand in the photograph. He was smiling, holding a gift for another woman's daughter. My voice changed. "Rebecca, yeah, I want to know everything. Then save copies. Don't alter anything. Don't move money. Don't start accusing him in writing. What if he calls? Talk normally." I almost laughed. Normally as you can. The timing was so perfect it felt cruel. My phone started ringing. Daniel. I stared at his name. Rebecca heard it. "That him?" "Yes." "Answer." I didn't move. "Rachel." "What?" "You said you wanted the truth." Picked up. "Hey." Daniel sounded cheerful. "Hey, stranger." I closed the laptop. "What's up? You didn't answer me last night." "I was tired." "You okay?" "Fine." A pause. "You sound weird." I looked at the photo of him standing behind Chloe's birthday cake. "I'm fine." "You sure?" "Yes." "Where's Soph?" "Getting dressed." "For what?" "We're heading home later." Another pause. "Home from where?" My heart jumped. I had almost said too much. I looked at Rebecca's number still connected on the other line. From a little overnight trip. What trip? I forced a laugh. Since when do I need permission? Daniel went quiet. Then he laughed too. You don't. But I heard it. The change. A tiny edge in his voice. You've been different lately. I leaned back. Different how? I don't know. More independent. I stared at the wall. Is that bad? No. Just unusual. Unusual. Because I had spent years checking before spending $70. Asking whether camp was affordable. Calling him before getting the car repaired. Making him feel necessary. I asked Daniel? Yeah. What if you got rich tomorrow? He laughed immediately. That came out of nowhere. Just answer. How rich?
Million.
Why did you buy a lottery ticket? Maybe. He chuckled. Then said, honestly, I probably hide it for a while. I stopped breathing. Why? To see if anything changed. My fingers tightened around the phone. What would change? You know, people. I mean me. There was silence. Then his voice turned teasing. Especially you. I swallowed. You think I'd change? I don't think you would. Then why hide it? To know for sure. I looked at the hotel room door. Sophie had stepped out of the bathroom. She was listening. Daniel continued. Money screws people up, Ratch. You've always been different. That's one of the things I love about you. My face went cold. And if I stayed the same? He laughed softly. Then I'd know I chose right. Sophie's eyes filled. I looked away from her. Interesting. What? Nothing. Are you sure you're okay? I have to go. Rachel. I said I have to go. I hung up. For several seconds nobody spoke. Then Sophie asked, was he talking about us? I put the phone down. Yes. She blinked quickly. So he really did it on purpose. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to say we didn't know enough yet. Instead I said, I think he did. She nodded. Then she picked up the mug she had painted for him. Can I throw this away? My throat tightened. You don't have to decide right now. I already did. She dropped it into the hotel trash. I almost pulled it back out. Not because Daniel deserved it. Because Sophie had painted it with so much love. But I left it there. On the drive back to Pennsylvania, I kept thinking about the way Daniel said, then I'd know I chose right. As if marriage were a test he administered. As if love were something I had to keep proving. As if 11 years had not been enough. That night, after Sophie finally went to bed in our apartment, I opened every financial folder I owned. I spread 11 years of statements across the kitchen table. Rent increases, medical bills, school receipts, utility notices, transfers, tax records. I began building a timeline. The more I looked, the less random our struggle seemed. Daniel's transfers always came just before we ran short. Never enough to build savings. Never enough to get ahead. Just enough to keep us dependent on the next one. I stared at the pattern until my eyes hurt. Then Rebecca emailed me. Subject: Preliminary property search. I opened the attachment. 2 known vehicles. Several business interests. Trust-related references that would require more work. And 1 property in Mecklenburg County. Purchased 9 years earlier. I read the address. My chest tightened. It was the mansion. I called Rebecca immediately. She answered on the second ring. You saw it? Yes. My voice shook. He bought that house 9 years ago? That's what the public record indicates. 9 years. Sophie had barely been a year old. Daniel had told me we couldn't afford a better apartment that year. I gripped the edge of the table. Rebecca, who owns it now, still appears connected to him. Does Vanessa own part of it? I haven't found that. Then why is she there? Rebecca was quiet. Too quiet. What? There's something else. My stomach dropped. What? I checked utility history and some publicly available residency records. And, Rachel, her voice had lost its legal calm. That house hasn't just been used recently. I stood up. What are you saying? I'm saying Vanessa Cole appears to have been associated with that address for years. How many? Another pause. Long enough that this may not be an affair that started last summer. My hand went numb around the phone. How long? Rebecca exhaled. I'm still verifying it. Rebecca. Rachel, I need you to prepare yourself. For what? She answered slowly. For the possibility that Daniel didn't just build a secret life in Charlotte. He may have been living 2 of them for most of your marriage. The first time Margaret Whitmore saw my daughter's worn-out sneakers, she stopped talking in the middle of a sentence. The second time she looked at them, her face changed. And 20 minutes later, when Sophie asked her whether her father stayed away because she cost too much money, Daniel's mother finally understood something I had spent 11 years trying not to admit. Her son had not simply lied to me. He had built two separate versions of our family and forced all of us to live inside them. Margaret arrived in Pennsylvania 3 days after I called her. I almost did not make the call. For years, Daniel had convinced me that his mother tolerated me because I was Sophie's mother, but had never really accepted me. She comes from a different world, he would say. Or don't take it personally. My mom thinks everyone should live the way she does. So Margaret and I spoke on holidays, birthdays, occasionally over FaceTime. She sent cards, sometimes gifts, but there was always distance. Distance I now realized Daniel had carefully maintained. When I called her, she answered with the same controlled voice I remembered. Rachel. Hi, Margaret. A pause. Is Sophie all right? That was her first question. Not Daniel. Sophie. It almost made me cry. She's safe. Margaret exhaled. What happened? I need to ask you something. All right. Did you know Daniel has a house in Charlotte? Silence. Then, of course, I closed my eyes. The answer hurt even though I expected it. And the Whitmore Trust? Another pause. Yes. The family foundation? Yes. I gripped the kitchen counter. And you never thought it was strange that Sophie and I live in a rented apartment? Margaret didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice sounded confused. Rachel, what are you talking about? My heart started pounding. I'm talking about the fact that your son told me he was broke for 11 years. Silence. Real silence. Then she said no. I almost laughed. No, that makes no sense. I agree. Daniel told us you wanted a simple life. I stared at the wall. What? He said you hated the way his family handled money. He said you wanted to raise Sophie normally. Normally? Yes. Her voice became defensive. Rachel, he told me the two of you agreed not to rely on family wealth. I felt sick. We agreed to no such thing. Another silence. Then Margaret said slowly, I'm coming to Pennsylvania. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Her tone changed. Not louder. Harder. I'll be there Friday. She arrived alone. No driver. No assistant.
No dramatic entrance.
She drove herself in a dark sedan and stood outside my apartment holding a leather handbag that probably cost more than my monthly rent. When I opened the door, we stared at each other for a few seconds. Margaret looked older than the last time I had seen her in person. Not weak, just tired. Her eyes moved past me, to the hallway, the apartment, the cheap shoe rack, the second-hand bookshelf. Then Sophie came running from her room. Grandma. Margaret's face softened immediately. There's my girl. Sophie hugged her. Margaret held her tightly, then stepped back and smiled. That was when she looked down at Sophie's shoes, the gray sneakers with the fabric separating near the toe. Margaret frowned. What happened to your new pair? Sophie looked confused. What new pair? Margaret blinked. The sneakers. What sneakers? The ones your father was supposed to get you. I felt something cold move through me. Sophie shrugged. I didn't get new ones yet. Mom said we're waiting for the back-to-school sale. Margaret looked at me, then back at Sophie. I sent money for shoes in April. The room went still. Sophie tilted her head. You sent me money? I sent your father money. How much? Margaret hesitated. That doesn't matter. Yes, it does, I said. She looked at me. How much? 500. I almost laughed. $500. For shoes, clothes, whatever Sophie needed. Daniel had told me in April that his mother had cut back on gifts because she thought Sophie had enough. I could still remember standing in Target with those sneakers in my cart. $49.99. I had put them back because the old pair still technically fit. Margaret seemed to read something in my face. You didn't get it. No. Her mouth tightened. Did this happen before? I don't know. She looked away. I sent money for camp last year. My stomach dropped. How much? Rachel. How much? $1,000. I stared at her. Sophie had not gone to camp last year. I had not been able to afford it. She had cried in the bathroom so I would not see. Later she told me camp sounded boring anyway. I lowered myself onto the couch. Margaret covered her mouth. Oh my God. Sophie looked between us. What? I forced my voice to stay calm. Nothing, honey. It's not nothing. She had become painfully observant in the last week. She sat beside me. Dad took money Grandma sent? I don't know what happened to it yet. Margaret sat across from us. I gave it directly to Daniel. Her voice was quieter now. He told me you didn't want me sending money to Sophie behind your back. I stared at her. He told you that? Yes. He told me you didn't approve of us. Margaret's eyes widened. What? He said you thought I was too ordinary, that you didn't like how I raised Sophie. Her face hardened. I never said that. He told me you thought Sophie was spoiled. I sent her money for camp. I know that now. Margaret leaned back. For the first time she looked genuinely shaken. Not offended. Not embarrassed. Shaken. What else did he tell you? I laughed without humor. How much time do you have? A few minutes later, I had placed copies of everything on the coffee table. Bank transfers, tax documents, public property records, photos of Daniel at charity events, the house in Charlotte, Vanessa, the birthday photo with Chloe. Margaret picked up the picture. Her expression tightened. I know Vanessa. That did not surprise me. What do you know? She's been around the family foundation for years. As what? A donor, committee member, social events. And Daniel? Margaret did not answer fast enough. I felt my stomach turn. You knew they were close. I knew they attended events together. Did you know she lived in his house? No. You're sure? Her head snapped up. Yes. Something in her expression made me believe her. At least about that. Sophie had been sitting quietly on the floor, drawing circles on a piece of paper without really drawing anything. Then she asked, Grandma? Margaret immediately softened. Yes, sweetheart. Does Dad not come home because I cost too much? Margaret froze. My chest tightened. Sophie. She looked at me. What? Why would you think that? Her face went red. She looked down. I don't know. Sophie. She rubbed her thumb against the edge of the paper. Dad always says stuff is expensive. Margaret went very still. Sophie kept talking because children always tell the truth at the exact moment adults wish they wouldn't. He said braces were a lot. I closed my eyes. He said camp was a lot. Margaret's mouth opened slightly. And Mom's car. Sophie glanced at me. And sometimes Mom says we have to wait until payday. I never told you to worry about that. I know. She looked embarrassed. I just hear things. Margaret's eyes filled. Sophie looked at her. I thought maybe Dad had to stay in Charlotte because he needed more money because of me. Margaret put both hands over her face. For a moment she said nothing. Then she stood. Not slowly. Abruptly. Where is he? I looked up. Charlotte. Call him. Margaret. Call him. Her voice was sharp enough that Sophie flinched. Margaret immediately softened. Not in front of Sophie. I stood. I'm not calling him. She stared at me. Why? Because my attorney told me not to confront him until I had everything documented. That sentence changed her expression. Attorney? Yes. You're filing for divorce? I haven't filed yet, but you're considering it. I held her gaze. Wouldn't you? Margaret opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time since arriving, she had no argument. She sat back down. I need you to understand something. What? I did not know. I crossed my arms. I believe you didn't know everything. Her jaw tightened. That's not what I said. And I'm not ready to make you innocent just because Daniel lied to you too. Her face went pale. Sophie looked up. Mom. I took a breath. Margaret nodded slowly. That's fair. The answer surprised me. She looked around the apartment again. At the small kitchen. The repaired chair. The stack of school paperwork. Then she said quietly, I thought this was your choice. I laughed. This? You know what I mean. No. Say it. She looked at me. I thought you and Daniel chose to live modestly. Modestly? My voice rose before I could stop it. I skipped dental appointments. Margaret flinched. I took extra bookkeeping work at midnight after Sophie went to bed. Her eyes dropped. I wore the same winter coat for 9 years because your son said we needed to be careful. Rachel. He let his daughter believe braces were a luxury. I know. No. You don't know. I stepped closer. You thought we were being humble. My eyes burned. We thought we were broke. Margaret looked like I had slapped her. Good. I wanted somebody in that family to feel it. She whispered, why didn't you ever call me?
Ich zerrte her.
Because your son spent 11 years convincing me you wanted nothing to do with us. That hit her harder than everything else. Her eyes closed. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Then she said, he told me you hated receiving help. I asked him once if we could borrow money from you for Sophie's medical bill. Her eyes opened. When? 3 years ago. What did he say? That you'd hold it over my head forever. Margaret's face turned red. I would never. I know that now. She stood again. This time slower. I'm going to talk to him. No. She turned. No, not yet. He stole money meant for his daughter. He may have done a lot more than that. He lied to both of us. Yes. And you expect me to sit quietly? I looked directly at her. For once, yes. Her eyebrows rose. Excuse me? You want to help me? Yes. Then don't warn him. She stared at me. I continued. Daniel has had 11 years to control every version of this story. He controlled what I knew. He controlled what you knew. He controlled the money. I pointed at the documents. He doesn't get another head start. Margaret's shoulders dropped slightly. Then she nodded. All right. That was the first moment I felt like we were on the same side. It lasted less than 4 hours. Because Daniel came home. I had not expected him. Neither had Margaret. The front door opened just after 7. I heard his key. Then his voice. Ratch? My whole body went cold. Margaret stood so quickly the coffee in her cup spilled onto the table. Sophie looked up from the floor. Dad? Daniel stepped inside carrying an overnight bag. He smiled when he saw Sophie. Hey kiddo. Then he saw his mother. The smile disappeared. He looked at Margaret. Then me. Then the papers on the table. His face changed completely. What's going on? Margaret stared at him. I had never seen that expression on her before. Not anger exactly. Disgust. How much money do you have? Daniel froze. What? Margaret stepped toward him. How much money do you have? Mom, answer me. He looked at me. His eyes narrowed. Rachel. That one word told me everything. He knew. Not what I knew, but enough. I stood. Hi, Daniel. He looked from me to Sophie. Why is Mom here? Margaret snapped, don't drag Rachel into this. Daniel's jaw tightened. What did she tell you? I laughed. What did I tell her? He turned toward me. Rachel, can we talk alone? No. This is between us. No, it stopped being between us when Sophie became part of your little experiment. His face went white. Sophie stared at him. Experiment? Daniel looked at me sharply. Why would you say that in front of her? Why would you do it to her? Do what? Margaret grabbed the photo from the table and threw it against his chest. Daniel caught it. Chloe's birthday. His face hardened. This isn't what you think. I almost smiled. Of course it isn't. Rachel, was the mansion not yours? Silence. Was the SUV not yours? His nostrils flared. Was Vanessa not holding your arm? Vanessa is complicated. I laughed. That's original. Margaret cut in. Did you tell Rachel you were poor? Daniel looked at her. I told her I wanted to live on what I earned. That is not what I asked. He said nothing. Margaret's voice rose. Did you tell your wife you were in debt? Yes, but, were you? Technically, I had obligations. I stared at him. Obligations? Investments. Family commitments. You told me you couldn't afford braces. That's not fair. I stepped forward. Not fair. He rubbed his forehead. I knew this would happen. Those words stopped me. What would happen? This. He gestured around the room. Everybody reacting emotionally instead of listening. Margaret's mouth fell open. You think this is emotional? Yes. You lied to your wife for 11 years. Daniel's voice hardened. I protected myself. From what? You know exactly what. No, Margaret said. Say it. Daniel's face tightened. From people who care more about the Whitmore name than me. I stared at him. People. He looked at me. I'm not talking about you. I laughed. You built the whole thing around me. Because you were different. There it is again. What? Different? He stepped toward me. You were. Then why did I have to keep proving it? He stopped. I kept going. If I was different after the first year, why year 2? His jaw tightened. If I was different after Sophie was born, why year 5? Rachel, if you already knew I loved you, why did you keep making us struggle? He looked away. That was the first time I saw it. Not guilt. Avoidance. Because there was no good answer. Margaret saw it too. Her voice dropped. A few months is caution. Daniel looked at her. A year maybe if I'm being generous. Mom, but 11 years. She shook her head. That's not caution. Her eyes filled with fury. That's cruelty. Daniel stiffened. I never denied Rachel anything she actually needed. I stared at him. Behind me, Sophie made a small sound. I turned. She was standing now. Her face was pale. Daniel saw her and softened immediately. Hey, Soph. She didn't answer. He took one step toward her. Sweetheart, don't. He stopped. Not because of me. 'Cause Sophie said it. Her voice was tiny but clear. Daniel looked stunned. She stared at him. Did you know Mom cried about bills? He swallowed. Sophie, grown-up money stuff is complicated. That's not what I asked. He looked at me. I did not rescue him. Sophie's chin trembled. Did you know? Daniel exhaled. I knew things were tight. Her eyes filled. But they weren't. Silence. He tried again. I was trying to teach us how to live without depending on money. Sophie frowned. Us? He realized too late what he had said. She stepped closer. Was I part of it? Daniel froze. Margaret covered her mouth. I stopped breathing. Sophie looked directly at her father. The test. Her voice cracked. Was I part of your test too? Daniel opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Sophie waited. 5 seconds. 10. Then she nodded. Okay. She turned and walked toward her room. Daniel moved after her. Sophie. She shut the door. Not slammed. Just shut. Daniel stood there staring at it. For the first time since he walked into the apartment, he looked afraid. Margaret spoke behind him. Your grandfather's anniversary gala is next month. Daniel turned slowly. What? You were planning to bring Rachel. His face tightened. Mom, this is not the time. Oh, I think it is. Margaret picked up her handbag. Daniel stared at her. You wanted to introduce your wife to the family properly, didn't you? He said nothing. Margaret's expression became cold. Do it. I looked at her. Daniel frowned. What are you talking about? She walked toward the door. Bring Rachel to the gala. Why? Margaret stopped, then looked at her son with a face so controlled it frightened even me. Because for 11 years you've been telling everyone what kind of woman your wife is. She opened the door. Maybe it's time they learned what kind of man you are. The first thing Daniel did after admitting he had lied to me for 11 years was buy me a car. Not apologize. Not explain Vanessa. Not sit down with Sophie and answer the question he had been too cowardly to answer the night before. He bought me a car. A black luxury SUV appeared outside my apartment 2 days later with a bow tied across the hood. For a full 10 seconds I just stared at it. Then I started laughing. Not because anything was funny. Because apparently my husband had finally decided the solution to 11 years of manufactured poverty was a nicer set of keys. Sophie stood beside me in the doorway. Is that ours? No. A man in a dealership jacket walked toward us holding a clipboard. Mrs. Miller? Yes. Delivery for you. He smiled professionally and held out the keys. Mr. Whitmore asked us to make sure everything was taken care of. I looked at the key fob, then at him. I'm not accepting it. His smile faltered. I'm sorry. Take it back. He glanced at the paperwork. It's already paid for. I don't care. Sophie looked up at me. Mom. I crouched slightly. Go inside for a minute, okay? She hesitated, then nodded. The salesman lowered his voice. Ma'am, I'm just delivering the vehicle. I understand. I handed the keys back. And I'm telling you to return it to the man who sent it. He looked relieved to have a clear instruction. I'll note that. Please do. 10 minutes later my phone rang. Daniel. Of course. I let it ring twice before answering. What? You sent the car back? Yes. Why? I closed my eyes. Daniel. It was for you. I know. You've been driving that old Honda for years. Yes. It barely passed inspection last time. Yes. So I bought you something safe. I laughed. You think the car is the problem? His voice tightened. I'm trying. No, you're spending. What's the difference? The difference is that one requires you to understand what you did. Silence. Then he said, Rachel, I know you're angry. Angry? I know that word isn't enough. No, it's not. I'm trying to make things right. With a $60,000 SUV? It wasn't 60. I went quiet. Daniel exhaled. Okay, that sounded bad. It sounded exactly like you. He lowered his voice. You don't have to struggle anymore. That sentence made something in me snap. Do you hear yourself? What? You keep saying it like I just survived a natural disaster. Rachel, you created the struggle. I didn't create every problem we had. You controlled the money. I was careful. You were cruel. He went silent. I continued. You sat there while I begged an orthodontist for a payment plan. I told you I would cover it eventually. You told me to wait. I was trying to keep things reasonable. For who? He sighed sharply. This is exactly why I wanted to talk in person. No, this is why you wanted to talk after sending me a car. You thought if I saw enough money I'd calm down. That's not fair. I laughed again. Nothing about this is fair. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said the words I knew would stay with me forever. The test is over, Rachel. I actually pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at it, then put it back. What did you just say? The test. Whatever you want to call it. It's done. My mouth went dry. You don't get to say that. What? You don't get to announce that my life was a test and then hand me a prize. That's not what I meant. That is exactly what you meant. Rachel, listen. No, you listen. My voice was shaking now. For 11 years, I worried about whether I could afford groceries. Sophie worried about whether she cost too much. I turned down jobs because you said we couldn't handle childcare. I stayed up until 1 in the morning doing bookkeeping because you told me our family needed the extra money. I know. No, you don't. I do. Then tell me what you gave up. Silence. I waited. Nothing. That's what I thought. I hung up. For the first time in 11 years, I did not feel guilty about it. That afternoon, Rebecca called. I heard about the car. I frowned. How? Daniel's attorney contacted my office.
I sett straight.
He has an attorney already? He'd be foolish not to. He knows I'm serious. He does now. I stared at the kitchen table. What did they want? To discuss an informal resolution. Meaning Daniel wants to keep this quiet. That did not surprise me. What is he offering? Rebecca hesitated. Access to a separate residence, a vehicle, immediate payment of Sophie's medical and educational expenses, and a temporary monthly support arrangement. I felt sick. He thinks he can put me on a better allowance. Rebecca was quiet. That's not the legal wording, but that's what it is. Pretty much. I leaned back. No, I assumed. Tell him no. I already did. That made me smile for the first time that day. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. What now? Now we keep documenting. A knock sounded at the door. I froze. Rebecca heard it. You expecting someone? No. Don't open it unless you know who it is. I walked toward the door and looked through the peephole. Vanessa. My heart kicked hard. Rebecca. Yeah, she's here. Who? Vanessa. There was a pause. Do not discuss settlement terms with her. I wasn't planning to. And record your recollection afterward. Got it. I hung up. Then opened the door. Vanessa stood there in a cream blouse and tailored pants, but she did not look like the woman I had seen laughing beside Daniel's SUV. She looked tired. Rachel, you already know who I am. Her mouth tightened. Yes. What do you want? To talk. No. She blinked. I understand why you hate me. I don't hate you. That surprised her. I crossed my arms. I don't know you well enough to hate you. She looked down. I deserve that. No. What you deserve depends on how much you knew. Her face changed. Can I come in? No. She looked past me toward the apartment. Is Sophie here? My body stiffened. Don't say my daughter's name.
I'm sorry.
Why are you here? Vanessa swallowed. Because Daniel is lying to both of us. I almost laughed. That's not news. It might be if you know what he told me about you.
I stared her.
Go ahead. She hesitated. He told me your marriage was over years ago. My face stayed still. He said you stayed legally married because of Sophie. Convenient. I know how it sounds. No, I think you know exactly how it sounds. Her jaw tightened. I'm not asking you to forgive me. Good. He said you hated Charlotte. That you refused to be part of the Whitmore family. That you didn't want the social obligations. I remembered Margaret saying almost the same thing. He told you I chose this? Yes. I laughed once. He told his mother the same thing. Vanessa looked startled. What? He built a different Rachel for everyone. She looked away. He said you preferred Pennsylvania. I preferred my husband. That landed. Vanessa's eyes dropped. I continued. He went home to me. She nodded. I know. He slept in my bed. Her face tightened. I know. He called me his wife. I know. So don't stand here acting like you thought he was divorced. I didn't. At least she said it. I stared at her. She continued quietly. I thought I was waiting. For what? For him to end it. My stomach turned. And that made it okay? No. Then why? Her face hardened slightly. Because I believed him when he said the marriage had become an arrangement. I shook my head. You wanted to believe him? Yes. That answer was more honest than I expected. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. There's something else. I did not move. What? Daniel told me years ago that you already passed his test. Every muscle in my body went still. What? She unlocked the phone. I found the message last night. She held it out. A text thread. Old. More than 6 years old. Daniel's name at the top. I read the message. Rachel will never leave. She proved that a long time ago. My chest tightened. Vanessa watched me. He knew. I handed the phone back. Yes. He knew you loved him. Yes. So whatever he says now, this wasn't about needing more proof. I looked at her. No. Vanessa's mouth twisted. It was about control. I hated that she was the one saying it. Because she was right. I leaned against the doorframe. Why are you showing me this? She looked embarrassed. Because he lied to me too. I almost smiled. There it is. What? You're not here for me. No. At least you're honest. She took a breath. I thought when he was ready he would choose me.
Is er daher?
Choose you? Yes. You lived in his house. Yes. You went to his events. Yes. You got the version of him I was apparently too poor to meet. She flinched. I kept going. And you still thought you were the one waiting? Her face reddened. I know how pathetic that sounds. It sounds exactly like what he wanted. She looked at me. What does that mean? He put us in roles. I felt the thought become clear as I said it. I was the loyal wife who proved I didn't care about money. Vanessa's expression changed. And I was the woman who fit into his wealthy life. She went pale. Neither of us spoke. Then I said he never had to choose. Vanessa looked sick. He had both. I nodded. For years. She stared down at her phone, then whispered, that son of a bitch. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead I said, you should go. She looked up. If you need the messages, my attorney will contact you. Her eyebrows rose. You already have one? Yes. Her face shifted again. For the first time I saw fear. Not for me. For Daniel. Does he know? He does now. Vanessa nodded slowly. Then she said, for what it's worth, Chloe doesn't know anything. I looked at her sharply. Leave your daughter out of this. I'm trying to. So am I. She walked away. I closed the door. Then I stood there for a long time. Rachel will never leave. She proved that a long time ago. That message changed everything. Because it proved what I had started to suspect. Daniel's test had ended years earlier. He had simply enjoyed keeping me inside it. The next morning I called Nicole Harris. I had not spoken to her in almost a year. She answered with, if this is about your old bookkeeping files, I swear I already sent them. Despite everything, I smiled. Nicole. There was a beat. Rachel. Yeah. Oh my God. Are you okay? Define okay. Still breathing? Yes. Then we'll start there. That was Nicole. No soft voice. No fake sympathy. Just steady. I told her the basic version. Not every detail. Enough. When I finished, she said, come work with me. I blinked. What? I'm serious. Nicole. I need operations help. I haven't done that kind of work in years. So I'm rusty. She snorted. You've been managing a household on scraps, fighting insurance companies, juggling school schedules, handling landlords, tracking bills, and apparently surviving a husband with a secret identity. I laughed despite myself. That is not a resume. It should be. I'm serious. So am I. She paused. We're expanding the property management side. I need someone who can handle vendor coordination, tenant paperwork, billing, budgets, and owners who think every problem is somebody else's fault. That last part sounds familiar. Exactly. I stared at the wall. When would you need me? Yesterday. I swallowed. I have Sophie. You've always had Sophie. I need flexibility. I know. I may have court stuff. I know. You don't even know if I can still do it. Nicole's voice softened. Rachel, you used to be the person everyone called when things went sideways. I closed my eyes. I don't feel like that person anymore. Then come find out if she's still there. That afternoon I agreed to start part-time. Daniel found out 3 days later. I still do not know who told him. Maybe Margaret. Maybe his attorney. Maybe Daniel had simply started monitoring everything because he could feel control slipping away. He called while I was filling out onboarding paperwork. You took a job? I looked at Nicole across the desk. She raised an eyebrow. I mouthed Daniel. She rolled her eyes and left the room. Yes. Why? I almost laughed. To work. You don't need to. There it was. I leaned back. Maybe I want to. What about Sophie? My entire body went cold. What about her? Who's going to handle school? I am. And after-school stuff? I am. And when you're working? The same way millions of mothers handle it. He sighed. I just think this is sudden. No. Sudden was finding out my husband owns a mansion. Rachel. No, go ahead. Explain why my job concerns you. It doesn't concern me. Clearly does. I'm just saying you don't need the money. I smiled without humor. I need a life you don't control. Silence. Then his tone changed. So that's what this is. What? Punishment. No. Feels like it. That's because you think everything I do is about you. He went quiet. I continued. I'm working because I should never have stopped building my own career in the first place. You stopped because it made sense for our family. Our family? Yes. You mean the family you only visited. That's not fair. You loved that sentence. I was working. You were living in Charlotte. For work. And Vanessa? He went silent. I waited. Finally he said, we need to talk about custody. I stopped breathing. What did you say? Sophie. My voice dropped. Choose your next words very carefully. I'm not threatening you. Sounded like one. I'm saying if you're planning to work more and move and change everything, we need to discuss what's best for her. I gripped the desk. For 11 years, I handled every doctor's appointment, teacher conference, school pickup, fever, dentist visit, permission slip, birthday, and nightmare while you lived in another state. I know. No, apparently you don't. I can give her more stability now. That sentence made my blood boil. You mean money? I mean resources. She needed a father. I was there. When? He snapped, that's not fair. I almost shouted. Instead I went very calm. Rebecca will discuss custody with your attorney. His breathing changed. You're really doing this? Yes. You're really willing to break up our family? I closed my eyes. You did that years ago. I hung up. Rebecca called me less than an hour later. Don't panic. That's never a good opening. Daniel's attorney raised parenting time. He thinks because he has more money. No. Her voice was firm. Wealth does not automatically make someone the better parent. I exhaled. We document who has handled Sophie's daily life. School records, medical records, activities, his travel, your involvement. I have all of it. Good. Then she added, and keep Sophie out of adult conversations as much as possible. I am. Good. That evening Margaret called. Her voice was tired. I heard about the job. Everyone hears everything. I didn't tell Daniel. I didn't say you did. She paused. I'm proud of you. I did not know what to do with that. So I said nothing. Margaret continued. The anniversary gala is still happening. I sat down. I figured. Daniel intends to go. Of course he does. He still wants you there. I laughed. You're kidding. I wish I were. Why? Margaret sighed. Because he thinks it will fix things. How? He wants to introduce you properly. I closed my eyes. After 11 years. Yes. And what exactly is he planning to say? Another pause. Then Margaret answered. He's been telling people for years that you refused family money because you loved him for himself. I went cold. What? He's proud of it. Proud. Yes. He's proud that his wife thought she couldn't afford braces? Margaret's voice cracked. I know. No. Tell me what he plans to say. He wants to tell the story of your marriage. I laughed softly. Oh, I'd love to hear his version. He thinks the family will admire you. Like a prize? Margaret said nothing. That was answer enough. The invitation arrived the next morning. Heavy cream paper. Embossed lettering. My name printed beside Daniel's. Rachel and Daniel Whitmore. I stared at the surname, then at the box delivered with it. Inside was a dark blue evening gown. Beautiful. Expensive. Exactly my size. A card lay on top. 11 years ago, you chose me without the money. At the gala, I want the world to finally see what kind of woman you are. Daniel. I read it twice. Then I carried the dress to my bedroom and put it back in the box. Sophie appeared in the doorway. Is that from Dad? Yes. She looked at the dress. It's pretty. It is. Are you going? I looked at her. Think so. She frowned. Why? Because for 11 years Daniel had controlled the story. because he had told his mother I chose poverty, told Vanessa our marriage was dead, told everyone else I was proof that he could be loved without the Whitmore name, because he wanted to put me in front of a ballroom full of people and proudly announce that I had passed. I smiled, because your dad wants everyone to know what kind of wife I am. Sophie studied my face. And you want to go? I picked up my phone. I want them to know what kind of husband he is. I called Rebecca. She answered quickly. Hey, I need the divorce papers ready before the Whitmore gala. There was a pause. Then, are you sure? I looked down at Daniel's card. 11 years ago, you chose me without the money. Yes, Rachel, once you serve him, the tone of this changes. I know. And if you're planning something public, I need you to be careful. I'm not planning a scene. What are you planning? I folded the card in half. Then again, I think Daniel wants to put our marriage on display. Rebecca went quiet. So I'm going to let him. I looked at the invitation. And when he's finished telling everyone that I passed his test, I dropped Daniel's card into the trash. I'm going to tell him he failed mine. The night Daniel planned to celebrate my loyalty, I walked into the Whitmore family gala carrying divorce papers in my purse. He had no idea. Neither did most of the people in that ballroom. To them, I was about to become the final chapter in Daniel Whitmore's favorite story. The humble wife who loved him when he had nothing. By the end of the night, that story would belong to me. I arrived alone. Daniel had offered to send a car. I declined. He had asked if I wanted a stylist. I declined that too. Then he sent the dress anyway. I did not wear it. Instead, I bought my own. Nothing outrageous. Nothing designed to compete with Vanessa or impress his family. Just a dark green dress that fit me well and made me feel like myself. That mattered more than I expected. For 11 years, most of what I wore had been chosen by price. This was the first time in a long time I had picked something simply because I liked the woman I saw in it. When I entered the hotel ballroom, Daniel saw me almost immediately. His face changed, not because I looked beautiful, because I had ignored the dress he sent. Rachel. He crossed the room quickly. You came. You invited me. His eyes moved over the dress. That's not the one I sent. No. Was there something wrong with it? No. He looked confused. Then why didn't you wear it? I almost smiled, because I didn't want to. He stared at me for a moment, as if the answer itself annoyed him. Then he lowered his voice. Can we not start tonight like this? Like what? You know what I mean. No, Daniel. I really don't. He looked around. People were already watching us. Not obviously, but enough. He forced a smile. Tonight matters to my family. I know. And to me. I know. His shoulders relaxed slightly. I want this to be good for us. That almost made me feel sorry for him. Almost. He truly believed there was still in us he could repair if he found the right combination of money, public admiration, and carefully chosen words. Then he reached for my hand. I stepped back. His smile tightened. Rachel, don't. His eyes sharpened. People are looking. I glanced around. Then maybe they should. Before he could answer, a man in his 60s approached us with a warm smile. Daniel. He shook my husband's hand, then turned to me. And you must be Rachel. Daniel instantly brightened. Yes, this is my wife. My wife. The words nearly made me laugh. The man smiled. I'm Thomas Bell. I've heard about you for years. I'm sure you have. Daniel gave me a quick warning glance. Thomas chuckled. Daniel always said you were the one person who never cared about any of this. He gestured lightly toward the room. I looked at Daniel. Did he? All the time. Thomas smiled at him. You're a lucky man. Daniel put a hand against my back. I moved before he could touch me fully. Very lucky, I said. Daniel's face stiffened. Thomas did not seem to notice. Within 20 minutes, I realized the problem was bigger than I had thought. Everyone knew me. Not personally. As a story, a woman named Eleanor Whitmore, some distant cousin apparently, touched my arm and said, I've always admired what you and Daniel did.
Ister daher.
What did we do? She smiled. Chose simplicity. I nearly choked. We did. Her expression faltered. Daniel appeared beside me instantly. Rachel never liked talking about it. Eleanor laughed. I understand. It's refreshing though. What is? To see people with access to so much choose an ordinary life. I looked at Daniel. He held my gaze. There was a warning there now. Not fear. Control. He expected me to play along. For old time's sake. I smiled at Eleanor. Yes, ordinary can be very educational. Daniel's jaw tightened. She laughed and moved away. He leaned toward me. What are you doing? Talking. You're making people uncomfortable. I haven't even started. His eyes narrowed. Rachel, please. I turned to him. You wanted me here. I wanted us here. No, you wanted your story here. That's not fair. I almost laughed. There it is again. His face reddened. Can we have one night without turning everything into an attack? One night. Yes, I gave you 11 years. He went quiet. For a second, the confidence slipped. Then someone called his name from across the room. He straightened. We'll talk later. I'm counting on it. I watched him walk away. That was when I saw Vanessa. She stood near the bar talking to two women. She wore silver. Elegant. Controlled. But when her eyes found mine, her expression changed. She excused herself and walked toward me. For once, I did not feel jealousy. I felt something stranger. Recognition. Vanessa stopped beside me. You came. So did you. I'm on the foundation committee. Right. She looked toward Daniel. Does he know? No. Her eyebrows rose. You're really doing it tonight? I am. Vanessa exhaled slowly. Then she looked down at her drink. I thought he'd told you not to come. He begged me to. That made her laugh once. A bitter little sound. Of course he did. I studied her. You thought he'd choose you if I stayed away? Her face tightened. No, that sounded like a lie. She looked at me. Fine. Maybe part of me did. At least we're being honest now. She nodded. Her eyes moved toward Daniel again. He told me this was supposed to be your big introduction. It is. He's been talking about it for weeks. I frowned. Before I found out? Yes. My stomach turned. What exactly was he planning? Vanessa looked embarrassed on his behalf. He wanted to tell everyone your story. My story. The way he tells it. I folded my arms. Go on. He says you're proof that real love still exists. I almost laughed. He actually says that? All the time. He says I'm proof? Vanessa looked at me. He's proud of the fact that you stayed before you knew. A chill ran through me. Before I knew what? She gestured around us. This. No. She frowned. What? He's proud that I stayed while he lied. Vanessa did not answer. I continued. He tells himself it's the same thing because that makes him the romantic one. She looked down. I know. No, I don't think you did. Her mouth tightened. And what exactly do you think I believed? That he was eventually leaving me. Her eyes sharpened. Yes. And did you ever ask why he needed a loyal wife in Pennsylvania while living with you in Charlotte? That's not fair. I smiled coldly. You sound like him. Her face changed immediately. I regretted it for half a second. Not because it wasn't true. Because I could see it landed where it hurt. Vanessa looked away. Then she said quietly, he never called me his future wife. I said nothing. He implied it. Daniel is very good at implications. He let me believe there would be a point where he chose. And now? Her mouth twisted. Now I think he never wanted to choose. I looked toward him. He was laughing with 3 men near the stage. Confident. Comfortable. Exactly where he belonged. Vanessa whispered he wanted both worlds. Yes. You as proof he could be loved without money. And you as proof he deserved the life money bought him. She closed her eyes for 1 second. When she opened them, something had hardened. I hate how accurate that is. Before I could answer, Margaret approached. She was wearing navy, her posture rigid. She looked at Vanessa first, then at me, then at Daniel across the room. Rachel. Margaret. Her eyes moved to my purse. You have them? I nodded. Her face tightened. Vanessa looked between us. The papers? Yes. Margaret exhaled. Are you certain? Yes. She nodded once. No argument. No attempt to save her son. Then she turned to Vanessa. You should stay. Vanessa blinked. Why? Margaret's expression was cold. Because Daniel has spent years telling different people different versions of the truth. Her eyes moved toward the stage. Tonight he can hear one version that doesn't belong to him. A few minutes later, dinner ended. Then came speeches. A foundation director talked about the family's history. A board member discussed the charity's work. Margaret spoke briefly about her late father-in-law and the Whitmore legacy. Then Daniel walked onto the stage. My stomach tightened. He looked at me immediately. Smiled. The same smile he used years ago when he asked if I would still love him if he were always poor. Most people here know I've spent a lot of my life uncomfortable with what my last name means. Several people smiled. He continued, when you grow up with money, you learn early that sometimes people see the name before they see you. I heard Vanessa inhale beside me. Margaret's face went stone still. Daniel went on. I was lucky enough to meet someone who never cared. He looked directly at me. My wife, Rachel. A few heads turned. I remained seated. He smiled wider. She met me without knowing the Whitmore name. She married me without knowing what came with it. My pulse pounded in my ears. He made it sound beautiful. He made deception sound humble. She built a life with me when she thought I was just another guy trying to make a paycheck stretch. A few people laughed softly. I stared at him. She never asked for more than I could give. My hands went cold. That line almost broke me. Because I had asked. For braces. For heat. For help with camp. For a newer car. For him to come home more often. I had asked. He had simply trained me to feel guilty for it. Daniel's expression softened theatrically. And every year, she proved something I wasn't sure anyone could prove. He paused. The room was listening. She proved she loved me, not what I had. Someone started clapping. Others joined. Daniel looked proud. Then he said it. She passed every test I never thought anyone could pass. The applause grew. I stood. Not dramatically. Just enough. Daniel saw me. His smile brightened because he thought I was coming to him. I walked toward the stage. Margaret did not stop me. Vanessa did not look away. Daniel held out a hand. I ignored it and walked to the microphone. He leaned close. What are you doing? I smiled at the audience. Daniel is right about one thing. The room quieted. His smile faded slightly. I stayed. I looked around. I stayed when our car broke down and we couldn't replace it. Daniel's eyes sharpened. I stayed when my daughter needed braces and we were told to wait. The room went still. I stayed when I worked extra hours at night because I believed my husband was drowning in debt. Daniel whispered, Rachel. I continued. I stayed when our daughter gave up summer camp because I thought we couldn't afford it. A woman near the front lowered her glass. Daniel moved closer. This isn't the time. I turned to him. You picked the time. His face changed. The room was silent now. I looked back at everyone. I didn't do those things to prove I could live without money. I swallowed. I did them because I thought I was building a life with someone I trusted. Daniel's face went pale. And while I was doing that, Daniel was living in a house in Charlotte he never told me about. A murmur moved through the room. He had access to family money I didn't know existed. Rachel. He spent freely there while controlling what came home to his wife and daughter. Daniel reached for my arm. I pulled away. Do not touch me. His hand dropped. Someone gasped softly. I kept going. For 11 years I thought we were struggling together. I looked directly at him. We weren't. My voice shook once. Then steadied. I was struggling. You were watching. Daniel's face turned red. That is not what happened. I nodded. Good. He blinked. What? Then explain it. The room was so quiet I could hear him breathe. Explain why Sophie waited for dental care. His mouth opened. Explain why I thought your mother disliked us because you told her I rejected help. Margaret stood. Daniel looked toward her. Mom. No, she said. One word. Sharp. Final. I reached into my purse. Daniel saw the envelope. His eyes dropped to it, then back to me. What is that? I placed it on the podium. His face drained of color. You know what it is. He did not touch it. Rachel. Divorce papers. Someone in the room inhaled sharply. Daniel stared at me. For the first time all night he looked terrified. Then his fear turned into anger. Of course it did. You're doing this here? You brought our marriage here. You could have talked to me privately. I tried talking to you privately for 11 years. That's not true. I almost laughed. You just stood in front of this room and bragged that I passed your test. His jaw clenched. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. He looked at the envelope, then at me, and suddenly his expression changed again. Suspicion. The old Daniel came back. The one who had spent 11 years measuring me. You find out I have money, he said slowly, and now you want a divorce. I stared at him. He seemed to hear himself and decide to keep going. Doesn't that prove my point? The room froze. Margaret whispered, Daniel. He ignored her. You were fine before you knew. I actually smiled. Not because it was funny, because I finally understood how impossible it was for him to see me. You think this is about the money? What else changed? Everything. But I gave him the simplest answer. I stayed with the man I believed had nothing for 11 years. His face tightened. I took one step closer. I'm leaving the man who has everything because he doesn't deserve his wife or daughter. Nobody clapped. I was glad. It was not that kind of moment. The silence was enough. Daniel looked around. That was when he finally realized there was no audience waiting to agree with him. He looked at Margaret. Mom, say something. She walked toward the stage. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. All right. Daniel visibly relaxed. For 1 second he thought she was coming to save him. Then she turned toward the room. The Whitmore family will not use its name, attorneys, charitable foundation, or business resources to protect Daniel from the consequences of his private conduct. His face changed. What? Margaret continued. Effective immediately, I will ask the board to suspend Daniel from certain foundation responsibilities pending review. Mom, and I will support a review of his authority in family business matters where his judgment is relevant. His face went red. You can't be serious. She turned to him. I have never been more serious in my life. You're taking her side? Margaret looked furious. This is not a side. She's humiliating me in front of everyone. Margaret's voice dropped. You humiliated your wife in private for 11 years. Daniel flinched. She continued. You turned her loyalty into a performance. Mom, you let your daughter believe she was expensive. That stopped him. His face changed. Margaret's eyes filled. I can forgive stupidity. Her voice shook. I cannot excuse cruelty. Daniel looked like he had been struck. Then Vanessa stepped forward. He stared at her. Don't. She laughed bitterly. What? You know what this was? Vanessa's face hardened. No. Yes, you did. I knew you were married. Exactly. She shook her head. I thought you were leaving a dead marriage. Daniel scoffed. You knew Rachel would never leave. Vanessa went still. So did I. He had said it too quickly, too confidently. Vanessa stared at him. There. Daniel frowned. What? That's it. What are you talking about? You knew she wouldn't leave. His mouth tightened. Vanessa stepped closer. You kept telling me you needed more time because you had to be sure. That's not. But you were sure. Daniel looked around. Vanessa, not now. No. Now. Her voice rose. You knew Rachel loved you. He said nothing. You knew years ago. Daniel's jaw tightened. Vanessa laughed and there were tears in her eyes now. So what was I? He looked irritated. Don't do this. What was I? You're making a scene. She stared at him. You never trusted her. Her voice cracked. You never trusted me. Daniel looked away. Vanessa shook her head. You don't trust anyone enough to love them. She set down her drink. Then she looked at me. Not apologetic. Not friendly. Just done. I'm leaving. Daniel grabbed her wrist. She pulled free immediately. Don't touch me. He stared at her. You're seriously walking out too? Vanessa's expression changed. Almost pity. Yes. Because my mother made one announcement? No. She shook her head. Because I finally realized I've spent years waiting to become the prize for a man who turns every woman in his life into a test. Then she walked away. Daniel stood there. His mother would barely look at him. Vanessa was gone. The divorce papers sat in front of him. And for the first time since I had known him, nobody was reassuring him. Nobody was telling him we would figure it out. Nobody was making his fear more important than the damage he caused. I stepped away from the microphone. He followed me off the stage. Rachel. I kept walking. Rachel, stop. I turned. What? His face looked younger somehow. Not innocent. Lost. Don't do this. I already did. We can fix it. No. We have Sophie. Yes. That means something. It means you're her father. I'm your husband. Not for much longer. His face twisted. You can't just throw away 11 years. I stared at him. Neither could you. He went silent. I left before he could answer. Outside, my hands finally started shaking. I sat in my car for several minutes before I could turn the key. My phone buzzed. For 1 second, I thought it would be Sophie. She was staying with a close friend and knew only that I had gone to an adult family event. I had refused to put her in that room. Instead, the message was from Daniel. Please, just talk to me before you make this permanent. Then another. I know I was wrong. Then another. Don't take Sophie away from me. I closed my eyes. That last one hurt. Because no matter how angry I was, I had never planned to erase him from her life. I wanted him accountable, not destroyed. My phone rang again. This time it was Margaret. I almost ignored it, then answered. Rachel. Her voice sounded tired. I'm sorry. For what? For not seeing it sooner. I looked through the windshield. You weren't the one married to him. No. She paused. But I raised him. I had no answer for that. Then she said, there's something you should know. My stomach tightened. What? Daniel left the ballroom. So, he's driving to Pennsylvania. I sat straighter. Tonight? Yes. Why? He says he needs to see Sophie. My chest went cold. He's not showing up at her friend's house. I told him not to. That has never stopped him before. Rachel. I'm calling Rebecca. Good. I ended the call. Before I could dial, another call came through. Nicole. I almost rejected it. Then answered. Hey, you sound awful. Thanks. You know what I mean. I just served Daniel. At the gala? Yes. There was silence. Then, wow. Yeah. Are you okay? No. Good. I frowned. What? If you said yes, I'd worry. Despite everything, I laughed. Nicole continued. Listen, I was going to wait until Monday. For what? The property company. My pulse slowed slightly. What about it? I've been thinking about what we talked about. And? I don't want you just helping with paperwork. I sat quietly. I want you handling operations with me. I blinked. Nicole, I'm serious. You barely hired me. And I remember how you work. I have no idea what my life is going to look like next month. Then build one. The words hit harder than she knew. I looked down at my hand. No wedding ring. I had taken it off before the gala. Nicole said, come in Monday. For what? To talk partnership. My throat tightened. Partnership? Yes. Before I could answer, another message flashed across my screen. Daniel. This one was different. I'm outside the apartment. My blood went cold. I stared at the words. Nicole said, Rachel? I did not answer. Another message came. Please come home. Then a third. Sophie needs both of us. I looked at the clock. Sophie was still at her friend's house. Daniel knew that. Or at least he should have. My phone started ringing. Daniel. I watched his name flash across the screen. For 11 years he had decided what our life would look like. How much we could spend. What I could know. What Sophie could have. What counted as enough. Now he was standing outside the apartment where he had kept us poor, expecting one more conversation to fix what he had broken. I declined the call. Then I called Rebecca. Because the gala had ended. The marriage had not. And for the first time, Daniel Whitmore was about to find out what happened when I stopped playing by his rules. Daniel was still standing outside my apartment when I pulled into the parking lot. For 11 years, I had waited for him to come home. That night, for the first time, I wished he would leave. He stepped toward my car before I had even shut off the engine. Rachel. I locked the doors. His face tightened. Seriously? I lowered the window 2 inches. Back up. I just want to talk. You drove from Charlotte after being told not to come. I needed to see you. No, you needed to feel like you still had some control. His jaw flexed. That's not fair. I almost laughed. Please find another sentence. He rubbed both hands over his face. He looked exhausted.
No polished suit. No confident smile.
No wealthy Whitmore heir charming a ballroom. Just Daniel, the man I had loved. That was almost harder. He stepped back. I got out but kept the car between us. Sophie isn't here. I know. Then why did you text that she needed both of us? Because she does. She needs stability. I'm her father. Yes. And you're acting like I'm dangerous. I'm acting like a man who lied to me for 11 years doesn't get to show up unannounced after midnight and demand access to my home. His face fell. Our home. No. That one word stopped him. I looked at the building behind him. That was our home when I believed we were both sacrificing to keep it. He stared at me. Now it's the apartment where you let your wife and daughter count pennies, while you drove a luxury SUV. He flinched. Rachel, I know I was wrong. Do you? Yes. Then why are you here? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I waited. Finally he said, because I don't know what to do. There it was. For once, not a justification. Not a test. Not a speech about money ruining people. Just fear. I folded my arms. You don't get to make that my problem anymore. He looked down. I'll sell the Charlotte house. That won't fix it. I'll cut Vanessa out of my life. She already left. I'll leave the family company. That won't fix it either. His voice rose. Then tell me what will. I stared at him. Nothing. He went completely still. What? You keep thinking there's a payment. I'm not. A house you can sell. A job you can quit. A check you can write. I shook my head. You think if you surrender enough things, eventually I'll owe you forgiveness. His eyes reddened. That's not what I'm doing. It's exactly what you're doing. He looked away. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, I was scared. I almost turned away. He continued. When I was a kid, I watched people turn into different versions of themselves around my grandfather. I stayed silent. Relatives fought over money. People showed up when someone got sick because they wanted to know what was in the will. He gave a humorless laugh. In college, I told one girlfriend who my family was. 2 weeks later, she was talking about where we should buy a house. I stared at him. So you lied to me? Yes. That explains the first few months. I know. It doesn't explain 11 years. His face tightened. I kept thinking I needed to be sure. You were sure. He looked at me. Vanessa showed me the message. His face drained. I continued. You told her 6 years ago that I would never leave. Daniel shut his eyes. I forgot about that. I didn't. Rachel, you knew I loved you. Yes. Then why did it continue? He looked broken when he answered. Because every time you stayed. He stopped. I waited. Every time I knew you would stay, I felt, what? Safe. I stared at him. And suddenly I understood. Not forgave. Understood. You needed me to keep sacrificing so you could keep feeling loved. He looked down. I nodded slowly. You were so afraid someone would use you for money that you used me for reassurance. His eyes filled. I had never seen Daniel cry like that. Not even when his grandfather died. I'm sorry. I believed him. That was the worst part. I believed he was sorry. And it still wasn't enough. I know. His head snapped up. You do? Yes. Then maybe. No. His face crumpled. I continued. Being sorry means you finally understand you hurt me. I swallowed. It doesn't mean I have to volunteer to be hurt again. He stared at me for a long time. Then he nodded. Barely. What about Sophie? She'll see you. His face lifted. When? When she's ready. Rachel. And when it's arranged properly. His jaw tightened again. She's my daughter too. Yes. Which means you have work to do. What does that mean? It means you don't buy her forgiveness. He looked away. No trips. No expensive gifts. No suddenly giving her everything you denied her before. That's not what I was planning. I raised an eyebrow. He said nothing. Exactly. Family counseling, I said. Gradual visits. Consistency. He looked at me. You've already decided. I've spent 11 years reacting to your decisions. I unlocked the building door. I'm allowed to make some now. He did not follow. That was the first boundary he respected. The divorce took months. Not days. Not one dramatic courtroom speech. Months of paperwork. Financial disclosure. Attorneys. Questions about trusts, assets, income, parenting time and property that I had never known existed. Rebecca warned me early. You are not going to walk away with half of the Whitmore fortune. I don't want half the Whitmore fortune. She smiled. I know. I still have to say it. What I received was fair. A share of marital assets that had been properly identified. Support for Sophie. A parenting plan. Financial transparency Daniel should have given me years earlier. Margaret offered more. Of course she did. One afternoon she slid a folder across my kitchen table. What is this? A house.
Ist daher.
No. Rachel, at least look at it. No. It's close to Sophie's school. Margaret. Her shoulders dropped. I'm trying. I know. Then let me help. You are helping. How? You showed up to her school concert last week. She blinked. You drove her to the orthodontist. That's being a grandmother. Exactly. She looked down. For most of her life, Margaret had solved problems with resources. Now she was learning presence mattered more. I smiled. One pair of shoes is enough, by the way. She looked confused. Then laughed. I bought 3. I noticed. I'm learning. So am I. Daniel's relationship with Sophie moved much slower. The first few counseling sessions were brutal. After one appointment, Sophie got into my car and stared straight ahead. How was it? Fine. That doesn't sound fine. She picked at the edge of her sleeve. Dad asked if I hated him. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. What did you say? No. I looked at her. She continued. I told him I just don't believe him yet. My heart hurt. Oh, honey. She shrugged like it did not matter. But her eyes filled. He cried. What did you do? Nothing. I nodded. That's okay. Was that mean? No. She looked at me. I don't want to be mean. Then don't be. But you also don't have to make him feel better about what he did. She thought about that. Can I love him and still be mad? Yes. Can you? I looked out the windshield. I don't know. That was the truth. Maybe some part of me would always love the man I thought Daniel was. But I no longer confused love with obligation. Meanwhile, Nicole kept me too busy to fall apart. 3 months after the gala, she threw a stack of lease renewals onto my desk. Congratulations. I frowned. For what? You officially have more work than one person should. That doesn't sound like congratulations. It is when you own part of the company.
Ich zerrte her.
She grinned. I'm serious about the partnership. You're insane. Probably. I've only been back a few months. And in that time you renegotiated 2 vendor contracts, fixed our billing mess, and stopped Mr. Jenkins from firing a perfectly good maintenance company because he misunderstood an invoice. He still sends me angry emails. He sends everyone angry emails. I laughed. Nicole leaned back. You know what's funny? What? You spent years thinking you were bad with money because you never had enough. I went quiet. She pointed at the reports. You were actually brilliant at making almost nothing work. That stayed with me. For years I had looked at our life and seen failure. Now I saw skill, resourcefulness, endurance, things Daniel had benefited from without ever respecting. By the end of summer, I put a down payment on a house. Not a mansion, not even close. 3 bedrooms, a small yard, 10 minutes from Sophie's school. The first night we stood in her empty room, she turned to me. Can I paint it? Sure. Anything. Within reason. She grinned. Purple. Fine. Dark purple. Still fine. Purple ceiling? I narrowed my eyes. Don't push it. She laughed. It was the same laugh she had made in the car on the way to Charlotte. For the first time, hearing it didn't hurt. A week later, I found Sophie sitting at the kitchen table with an envelope. What's that? She pushed it toward me. The remaining money from the mall drawing. I stared. You still have this? You made me put most of it in savings. Smart mother. She rolled her eyes. We never used it. Not all of it. She smiled. So can we? Can we what? Go somewhere. I leaned against the counter. Disney. She thought about it, then shook her head. The beach. Which beach? I don't care. She smiled. Just us. My throat tightened. Just us. A month later we drove east. No surprise visit. No secret address. No father waiting at the end of the trip. Just 2 suitcases, terrible road trip snacks, and Sophie changing the playlist every 3 minutes. Halfway there my phone buzzed. A message from Ethan Parker. He handled renovation work for several properties Nicole and I managed. 41. Divorced. Quiet. Reliable. And most importantly, he had never once looked at me like I was something fragile he needed to rescue. Hope you and Sophie have a great trip. No work calls. Promise. I smiled before I could stop myself. Sophie noticed. Who's that? Work. She narrowed her eyes. Work has a name? Yes. Is it Ethan? I looked at her. Why do you know Ethan? He fixed the porch railing. That does not explain that expression. She grinned. Sure, Mom. I put the phone face down. Pick a song. She laughed. I looked at the road ahead. 11 years earlier, I had promised Daniel I would stay even if he never had money. I had kept that promise longer than he ever deserved. What I had never promised was to stay after learning he had everything and had chosen to give his wife and daughter almost none of it. Daniel had spent 11 years trying to prove I could love him without money. In the end, I proved something he had never expected. I could build a life without him. And as Sophie turned up the music and the ocean grew closer, my phone buzzed one more time beside me. This time I didn't reach for it. For the first time in years, whatever came next could wait until I was ready.